All right, we are live.
Look at that. Fantastic. This is live in my screen now. That's helpful. Well, good evening, IAOA. Welcome to the 10th. Yes, this is the 10th edition of IAOA's Collabcast. I think it's already been a year. This is like about 1 year since we started doing these, Nick.
It's actually the 11th episode.
Is it really? The 9th would have been where are they now, right?
No, that was the 10th.
That was the 10th. All right, well, I'm going to go back to counting school. So Adam Serwinski joined.
You could tell we practiced this going.
10 sounded so much better, too.
I know, right? So I want to make it, screw it. We're just making it the 10th solo run. So we'll run that right there. So I'm Adam Serwinski. I was always joined by Nick Ayers, who is doing his very, very best Harry Carey impression, right? Nice specs, buddy. Look at the new look.
These are, okay, so no, this is not a commercial, but I'm going to highly endorse these. These are blue blocker glasses. If you look at your computer all day long like I do, I'm either looking at my phone all day and all night, or I'm looking at this screen all day and all night. So all the cool kids get these. These are blue blockers. You could buy them on Amazon for a few bucks. They block the blue light from coming in, which preserves your retinas. It could be a sham. It could be snake oil. I'm not sure, but I do look like Buddy Holly, and I am liking it. So,
well, I just want you to do the blue blocker rhyme now from back in the day, right? Man, I love these blue blockers. Everything is clear. Block out the sun. All right. Anyways, getting back to it. We are here on Google Hangouts for tonight's podcast. And as you know, our one and only rule is that when you do want to contact us, when you want to ask questions, when you want to engage with our good friend here, James, you must use our Facebook event page. Do not text us. Don't tweet us. Don't sext Nick as much as he may like it. Send all comments and pictures and everything else onto the Facebook event so that we can make sure everyone can share in it.
And just to simplify that even more, if you're an IAOA, we have the event. Like if you search just Collabcast, you'll see the event, and there's a post in the event that I've commented on that says, if you have questions for James, post them here. Just put them on that thread. That's all you got to do.
And we'll get to them. Yeah, we will. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's basically the only rule we have. Just comment there. Say things about James. Nice, bad, make fun of whatever. It's all cool. So tonight's session of the Collabcast, we are headed back out to the Great Northwest, where we previously went to see Claudia, and we're meeting James Castell, who joins us fresh off the soccer pitch, where he was with his kids earlier today. And James runs the personal lines division of his family's insurance agency, Castell Insurance. James has been in the insurance industry for about 6 years and single-handedly built out the personal lines department after his family had a long-running med sup firm and benefits firm. All right. And tonight he's going to share with you his blueprint for evaluating, planning, executing his agency's expansion into the personal lines of insurance. So thanks for joining us, James. I'm really glad to see you're wearing your Oregon green tonight, because I know you were out there just cheering on the Ducks.
Oh, man. I was going to show you that I've got the matching blue blockers that your boy Nick was showing off.
There you go. Look at that.
You know, I'll let him be the
looking good,
the studious,
looking good
bookworm over there.
You both need to just wrap white tape right across the bunch of those.
Nobody's ever confused me for a bookworm. That is for certain.
All right. So, well, thanks for joining us really quickly. We want to just kind of jump right into getting to know, letting people on IAOA get to know you a little better. Sure. Talk a little bit about yourself, where you're located. Give me maybe a little baseball card of your agency and what you've been doing there. Maybe for the past 6 years.
Sure. So again, James Castell, obviously pretty excited to be here. We are located in Washington State, Western Washington, in a very, very small town called Sequim. It has become kind of a hotbed for retirees. It has the best weather in the state of Washington. So that's kind of what draws a certain demographic. So I know with following IAOA, there's a ton of conversation about P&C. That's kind of seems to be the meshing point for most of us. But as I have come to learn, there are lots of other lines of insurance that can be beneficial for agents. So that's kind of why I'm here. Myself personally, I had started out in the banking industry. I worked for Bank of America for a little over 7 years during and after college. Learning a lot about consumer finance. I got all the way up through management and was really enjoying what I was doing. But at that time, I was kind of in, I guess I would call it like a hipster, hippie area of Seattle where we got a lot of protests. So if you go back 7-8 years, you think about the Occupy Wall Street, we are the 99%. I had a brick thrown through my bank's window that I was in charge of. And so it was kind of a tumultuous time frame.
You said, I'm getting done with this. I'm going into insurance. Forget this nonsense.
Well, not so much. Not so much. I did evaluate some different career options. But as you guys have often heard the story, no one grew up dying to be an insurance agent, my dad included. So my whole childhood, my dad basically was a traveling long-term care salesman, knocking on door. He had leads. He would go and sell long-term care up and down all of I-5, all of Western Washington. He was gone a lot. So this is like the old, I know, who is it? Jared Bellman, you know, the new coffee table. He was the old coffee table, sitting at people's houses, selling them long-term care. And when he moved out here to Sequim, it was kind of fortuitous timing where Medicare insurance really became this great wild, wild west for 65 plus. So he kind of jumped in. One thing that I've heard him say, I don't know if he's coined this or if it's written down somewhere, but his lifelong thing is, with confusion comes great opportunity. So he talks about that all the time. If there's something that is confusing to the masses, then it gives you the opportunity to basically be the expert, or kind of that buzzword in insurance now, be the authority figure of that topic. So he kind of jumped in feet first and went right into Medicare and started hustling and bustling, you know, whipping out fold-out tables at prescription places, at all the pharmacies, at Costco, QFC, Walgreens, slanging prescription insurance, which is, for those
he was Ned Rylerson from Groundhog Day.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know the ins and outs, a very non-glamorous, very non-lucrative sale. I mean, one time a year, dealing with 65 and up people, looking at their laundry list of prescriptions and what ointments and pills and eye drops, and it was awful. But what it was for him was a foot in the door for future leads, because with this small Part D that you make like $25 a year off of, it got his foot in the door for other things, which turned into the med sup business that Adam had mentioned. So I'm rambling. I told these guys I can talk a long time, but there is an end to the story. So as the business grew, he hired on my uncle. My mom came and worked. It became more than just him, and things are booming. They grew to, I think, over 2,500 people that they were doing Medicare supplements for. And they moved from a small little house in town in rural Old Sequim into a, you know, Main Street office building. So it used to be a mortgage office. Mortgages weren't hot. So he bought this building. And within the first month, he had about 15 people walk in the door asking for home or auto insurance. And he had this epiphany after a month: I can't keep referring this away. I have to capture it. So it was either I'm going to poach someone from the current place that I do business for, or I'm going to somehow lure one of my kids out of the urban Seattle area out to, you know, rural Sequim. It's not a hotbed for 25 and 30-year-old kids to move to, but because of all of those things that were going on in my banking career, he probably saw some of the opportunity of a tumultuous time to say, great, let's make this happen. And so what I did is I quit the bank and quit January 1. Okay, let's go get licensed. Went and got licensed. We're good. Everything's ready to go. We called up. This is kind of going into the story about the agency and kind of the how-to, Adam, that we talked about. Quit. And for those of you guys, members of different clusters and stuff, I called up 2 or 3 of our top carriers. What's going on here? You showing Sunny Sequim? Look at that. Look at all that lavender, baby.
It's gorgeous.
So quit, and then found out you can't get appointments. For those of you who don't write medical insurance, there's our resident Roosevelt elk herd, the game farm, the Bears. I see you doing some work there. We have a drive-through zoo. You can drive through and you can throw bread at those fellas if you want to. Don't let PETA know about that, though. They'd be pretty upset. So the difference, the big eye opener for us, which was a huge snafu, which hopefully this could be a learning experience for anyone looking at this type of thing. You can't just call up Safeco Insurance or Travelers and say, hey, I've never written a P&C policy in my life. Can I have an appointment and start writing business? In health insurance, you pretty much can. Once you're licensed, there's no loss ratios or underwriting or anything like that. You can just basically, slang them and bang them in the door and, turn out 20 applications in a day with next to no underwriting. So that's kind of a real long story of how I ended up at a family agency that was never PNC, that never had any intentions of it, that really started with a dude in his car and then a fold-out table at the Walgreens pharmacy. But now it's definitely a different situation that we find ourselves in.
So it takes us to kind of a really good question I think a lot of agents deal with is you're up against the wall, you'd quit, you take this leap of faith, and then you want an appointment. Where'd you go next?
Yeah. So first we talked to a big reputable independent in town about some sort of apprenticeship program. We thought maybe I could get hired on, learn the business from them, find all their best practices, and then start poaching their clients. Again, my dad's a pretty good salesman, so we were about this close to doing something like that. But ultimately, the deal breaker was they wanted me to be an employee of this other agency, which was not going to happen. I had to be on the Castell payrolls. So that's when, after talking, I think, to this agency owner and Safeco Insurance and a couple other carriers, we got turned on to one of the SIAA clusters in the area. And that was our foot in the door. I know there's a ton of talk about pros, cons, deal with the devil, all that. But I had gone 4 months now quitting a banking career and wasn't able to write a policy.
Yeah, those are different. I had to do conversations.
I had to do something. This was not for securing books of business or getting better bonuses. This was basically to make my decision viable. So we ended up with SIAA, and that basically was a training process where they set me up with a couple different agents to kind of go shadow for a few months. And then I was off to the races here in the office.
But I think that's a common, issue that a lot of young agency owners are facing is that the appointments are so restricted that you must feel funneled and forced into some cluster or some group for that matter to be able to write business. I mean, if you don't have the chicken or the egg they face is you can't have, carriers, you can't make a book. You don't have a book, you can't get carriers. So how are you supposed to kind of get it off the ground?
Yeah. And even if you get one, even if you have a great local company, I mean, are you truly independent if you're writing for one carrier? It kind of, it's a hard thing. And it was hard for us to wrap our head around the whole concept of, again, loss ratios, book performance, profitability. Like in health insurance, it does not matter. You could write 10 policies and all 10 of those people have $10 million in claims. Nothing's going to come back against you. There's no accountability when it comes to that sort of thing.
Is your dad still in the agency? Is he still there?
Yes.
Is he still hanging out at Walgreens and slinging policies? Or
no? It's the weirdest thing, man. I've had such a hard time changing his mindset of the fact that now he is like the head honcho of, a full standing business building, that people will come to him. That was a huge mindset change, that people will schedule an hour out of their day, drive in, park, and walk into his building to see him. Sometimes I have to slap his wrist, like, why does it say you're going out of office? I don't need you gone for 3 hours. Come back in, sort of thing. So, yeah.
He just liked the Costco food, I think. He was one about those $1.50 hot dogs.
He'd probably be one of the first people to agree with that sort of sentiment. He knows up and down the I-5 by payphones and gas stations with clean bathrooms and who has the best fried chicken.
The fact that he knows the payphones in 2018, do you think are they still existing? Because that's pretty. I mean,
not anymore. So we're going back, the 80s and 90s. But he knew everywhere that he could go for a good, quiet payphone and a clean bathroom.
So your dad, it seems like, as far as identifying the risk to build out that new area, your father kind of identified it just based on the fact that people were knocking on his door and asking for it.
Yeah, it was, partially it was the foot traffic. And I know that this doesn't hit home with a lot of agencies that do working from home, working remotely, shared workspace. But I also know that there's a good quantity of agencies out there in this group that are still small town brick and mortar buildings that see people. And so that's kind of where the story comes in, is like, I joke with my friend Gabe up in Mill Creek, he has maybe 2 people visit his office a day, whereas I'll have 15 people that have just stopped by before lunch. Like, it's a different dynamic. And so I think the big thing is looking at the need, not trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, being like, we got to write this business because it's super profitable. Kind of what fits, I guess, your current demographic. So for obviously Medicare, once you're at that age group, almost all of them own a house, probably outright, have a couple of cars, expendable income. They're a lot less price sensitive. So it really became a really good kind of mesh point for us to cross sell and have more and more, kind of hooks in the client to keep them with you.
Especially if they're moving to kind of a retirement community or retirement town, that just indicates a little bit of income, or at least wherewithal to be able to carry that kind of expense, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, when you're talking about the new clients, new to the era, retiring in their late 50s and 60s, that's without doubt. Now, that said, there's still a huge demographic that are 70, 75 plus that you'll hear a lot about the, fixed income concerns or on Social Security. So there's still lots of that counseling that goes on, but still most of them own homes. So you're not dealing with monoline type accounts right off the bat. And so that really, kind of what we had talked about prior is identifying what your opportunities are with your current clientele. If you're looking to expand, yes, you want to hit other areas, but you also want to be able to do stuff that is deepening the relationship with your current clients, because those are that renewable income base. And the more you can build that, it just opens up more doors for you.
So we talked about how you identified the niche to kind of grow it out. We talked a little bit about the training you actually ultimately got by shadowing other agencies. When it came to building it out, what were your steps, or what was the plan, maybe before you executed it? What was your plan, were you planning to cross sell? Were you planning to market to new people? Like, what was the plan to execute, or at least as you saw it when you were starting off the new area, the new line?
Yeah, when we started, again, a little bit naive. I can talk a lot better now about it because of the experience. But at the time, it was just, we basically thought everyone that has a med sup with us would want, of course, to bring every policy that they have in insurance and bring us all of their money. We learned quickly it didn't quite work that way. People liked who they did business with. It's kind of what the industry is built on, is that retention. And hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we started out with a pretty pointed cross-sell plan. We went and ran numbers on those that had been with our agency for a certain period of time, certain age group, and kind of went out and just basically plucked the first people that were going to be my guinea pig. Because again, remember, I had never used a rater. I had never written a policy. I was on the phone constantly with our customer service and like the back agency tech support, because I had no one in the office that had any experience. So just because we had other agents didn't mean that they knew anything left or right about, deductibles, coverage limits, different endorsements. They didn't know anything. So I spent a lot of time, on the phone and figuring it out basically on my own with those clients that we pinpointed as these are our target clients initially. And the biggest thing that we looked for were people that were going to be patient, because we didn't hide it. We were new to what we were doing. So we wanted to get it right. And sometimes that took time.
Did that plan actually, do you think that was a smart way to go about it? Or in retrospect, do you think you would have done things differently had you known what you know now?
I think it's smart because with people that you already have some sort of equity with, you've done something well for them, you've done something to earn their trust. You don't, in this day and age, even 65-year-olds, they're texting with us. They look at our video proposals. They are somewhat expecting that, 4-hour turnaround. They want something instantly. And so people who you've already laid the groundwork with and worked with, they kind of get it. They get that warm and fuzzy that you have with your agency. And so they aren't thinking, oh my gosh, this guy's got my information and he hasn't got it back to me. They're thinking when he gets it back, it's going to be right.
Nick, you have any questions? I just don't want to be dominating the mic. I know how much you love to talk.
I love to talk. Unfortunately, I was Eric's on here now. I was fixing a technical error in the background, so that is completely my mistake.
Spacing out, huh?
No, we had it wasn't streaming live to our website, so it is now. It is right now.
All right.
I mean, they basically just missed everything. I guess we can just shut it down. Everybody, see you later, right? Yeah. Well, so
no, I got a question. Here's an obvious question. So you jump into PNC, right? Your agency culture is all one line of business. How difficult was it to introduce this to a client base that was conditioned for so many years not to have this? And how did you really kind of break this out from a messaging standpoint? How did you get attention onto this product line? Was it just picking up the phone and calling your customers and saying, hey, we do home and auto now? Or how did you really break into this with your agency culture?
Well, you said there's kind of two things. How difficult was it? It still is.
Yeah.
You know, it still is, even 6 years going. And it's part and parcel. Part of it is with the community. There's still a lot of people that think of us just as a health agency. So that's a brand awareness. I still run in once a month with clients going, oh, I didn't know you did that. So there's still an effort there. It's also a huge effort with the existing agent team that is so focused on the life and health and Medicare, because all of the verbiage, all the terms, all the insurances that we love and drool over and write blogs over is totally different. Everything's different. Like, so having, another agent answer the phone that is answering the phone, trying to do their best, but, just like if you got thrown questions about, in-network deductibles, co-insurance, and, the different things about Medicare coverages, I kind of, freeze. So there's a disconnect there. So it's still a challenge, but ultimately the quickest first thing that we did, Nick, was we already had a newsletter that we were doing for our clients. And so it was basically like, boom, shop's open. Who's ready to do business? And there was enough initially, like I said, because I was the only one who spoke the language. There was enough initially when you had 3 or 4 calls and you've never done any of this, 3 or 4 people wanting to talk to you in the first day or two, that was enough to kind of keep me busy.
How brutal was it your first year? Let's call it the first, take me back to those first 3 months when you knew probably little to nothing.
Yep.
And you had no experience. I tell my team, we train our sales team, and I tell them, look, I'm going to try to teach as much as I can, but there's really a lot of it. It just has to come situationally when you're doing it. Mm-hmm. Take me back to those first couple months when you were just swimming in an ocean, and
it was awful. It was awful. It was awful. I mean, as someone who had worked at a bank and done every position from teller to manager, I knew that place like inside and out. So there wasn't a question that came to me that was like, I don't know. That's new to me. Trying to figure out when you're SIAA and you immediately get 5 carriers. So trying to figure out all the logins, all the quote ability, hooking them up to easy links.
You're like, I'm going back to the bank.
I'm like, dude, what did I do here?
They could throw bricks through my window every day.
Throw a brick in my back if you want. The saving grace that I had is I had a couple of agent owners. Shout out, he called me just before this, Gabe O up in Mill Creek, that I was able to basically call and lean on when I had questions. And then our top carrier, Safeco Insurance, plugged them. I had a back office support person. I forget the technical name, territory sales specialist or something.
I think they're called underwriters.
No. They didn't have the time of day for me. This is someone else. And he was awesome. His name was Matt Carson. I think I still remember his phone number by heart because I called him 5 times a day. So I was drowning for a long time. So like I said, it was one of those things that a lot of new agents or scratch agents can probably recognize that, you didn't need 18 leads for the day. 3 kept you busy enough because it was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what this means. I don't know. I don't want to recommend the wrong thing. What are the coverage options? So, it was hard. It was hard. And then it got easier and easier. And as the renewals grew, it got easier. And then at about year, I don't know, the premium dollars and all that stuff are totally different. My clients are very low maintenance. So I was able to get to a certain volume that I think was pretty good before I basically had to say, I need help now. And so that point was the most frustrating because what was happening is I was so busy doing my stuff and servicing my existing clients that people would walk in the door and need help right away. And I wasn't able to do it. And so that became the point. That was the aha. Once we started missing opportunities because of my time overload, that was when we had to start branching out and bringing more people on.
Have you guys been able to get younger with your clients?
Yeah. Clients. Yes. Yes, because part and parcel, again, great confusion is the opportunity, as my old man would say. With Obamacare, when it came out, the ACA, no one wanted to touch it. We dove in. I was slanging health insurance policies through the state's exchange because that was your foot in the door with a huge new demographic. So yeah, I mean, for the longest time, most all of our clients were probably 55 plus, and it's definitely dropped down because of what we do. We're able to get into more households that are employed gainfully and have health insurance elsewhere, but obviously they still own homes and drive cars and have kids and all that stuff that goes with the younger demographic.
Have you sold anybody who the personal lines insurance first, and then they ultimately bought the Medicare sup? Have you seen that cross sell come back and actually help your dad's business?
For sure, it cross pollination all the time. You know, people instinctively think because of the marketing, shop, 15%, save this, save that, save this, progressive flow, all that. So even people that are in that age demographic or younger, whatever, they're just kind of now trained that, oh, they ought to be looking every 3 to 5 years. They're just trained that way. And so what we would do is obviously get the foot in the door and say, by the way, I see you're 65 or 68 or whatever your age is. I'm guessing you have a Medicare supplement. Oh yeah, I bought it directly through so-and-so. Well, guess what? We can probably help you with that. So, you know, it's just planting the seed and getting your opportunity. Again, we all track. I've seen posts on IAOA a lot recently about like policy in force and different retention numbers. I don't even know what our numbers are because of this agency management differences.
Same.
But we have to be up over 3 policies per person because our P&C book is over 2. And a lot of those people have probably 2 health insurance policies with us.
And how does that manifest itself in those retentions? Like, I mean, you know, you said you don't know the numbers, but you obviously have to have some trend lines or some understanding by being so involved in the agency as far as people and how much they stay around. Or do you hear clients say, I'm staying with you because I have my health insurance, or I'm staying with you for health because
It's easy. Oh, you walk in the one door, maybe you don't get the same agent because, you know, you don't go to check in at the restaurant and expect the chef to be there, you know, serving it to you. You go to a different person. But for people, simplicity is a big sales point, and the simplicity of one-stop shop, not, oh, auto, home, but like everything. Oh, you want life insurance? We can do that as well. Oh, you need, you know, retirement planning and annuities? We can do that as well. So basically they can come into one place that they've already established is trustworthy and gives good advice. And then they can start bringing more business to us.
So you talked a little bit too about the need that you recognized when you had a turnover business that you needed to increase your staff. What were the steps in staffing? Did you go producer first? Did you find it was service first? Just when you're building it, because when you're building out a new agency, that demographic or dynamic in the office changes. So what were your steps in growing the staff for the personal lines business?
I think similar to, we were professing our, you know, boyhood crushes on Claudia about her agency management style. And our agency, I think, is real similar. We have, everyone is licensed. Everyone can give the advice and do things. We basically only have one person that doesn't sit and sell with clients. It's kind of an all hands on deck. So once they were coming on, it wasn't like, I want you just to do this and just to do endorsements and billing stuff. You kind of have to know, in my opinion, as someone who did a banking career from teller up through management, I think it's really valuable to know all of those steps. It may be controversial. You'll talk to lots of other leaders that think differently, that you can do it a different way. But to me, I think it's really important to know what everyone's going through, to have your hands on every level. So we went producer first, and she actually, great hire. She had experience. She'd run an all-state agency for a period of time. And she came on to help with that Affordable Care Act. Once that kind of shriveled up a little bit for us, we brought her over to the P&C side and kind of redistributed her workload. But ultimately for us, you have to be able to do everything from billing to, you know, rewriting secondary homes and umbrella policies and all of it.
Nice. So we talked a little bit about your path and we've walked through it, but maybe let's show maybe the dirty underbelly, because you've talked a little bit about the negative parts of getting the appointment, but what other parts of growing that or adding that business to your family line? Because it's got to be also a family dynamic there, were really difficult or that you had to push through?
The first and foremost is agency management. I see the posts on there all the time. There's not, in my opinion, and maybe there's someone that's going to, hit me up to solicit us after this, but I don't think that there's a great management system.
Let me know if they do.
Okay. I don't think that there's a great management system that does all lines of insurance. I think there's some that are so built out and specified and perfect for P&C. I think that there are probably some that exist for health and life. I don't think that there's one insurance management system that really has it buttoned down. And the thing that drives me crazy, because I kind of grew up on the P&C side. So when I came on, I would consider myself just a producer. I was just selling P&C, nothing to do with managing, hiring, anything like that. It was just build that baby up. And as it grew, my desire to kind of take on different roles and leadership in the agency changed. Dude, Medicare and health insurance, this is the one bad part. It is so like old school. There's no great downloads. It's like everything seems manual. There are still some applications that have to be wet ink signatured and faxed to companies, which I saw a joke like, where are you? I'm in 2018. We don't do faxes, but some do. And so to me, it's a huge disconnect. When you talk about pain points, we have 2 management systems. It sucks.
Wow. That's yeah, I mean, I think they're all pretty bad. So the fact that you've got to do it twice.
I hate one enough for 2, but to have 2, I can imagine the level of frustration.
Yeah. So, but in the meantime, we were that old school agency with 6 file folders, filing cabinets full of paper files. In the last 6 years, fully digitalized, everything's scanned, everything's stored in the cloud. So we've done different things to modernize as much as we can, but some of it is just the industries, they just don't see eye to eye. I mean, that's why I think in every state, you have to have 2 licenses to do it. You can't just get an all-encompassing insurance license. You got to have both. And it just seems like they're separate, totally separate.
Do you think, so just from a very high level, if someone was to call you today and say, I want to add on whatever line of business into their agency, what would your basically steps be that you say, hey, you got to work through these headlines before you even launch it, and then after you launch it, you want to set these kind of key indicators to make sure that you're hitting, or at least your trajectory is on the right path. And I know policies may not be that. But what would you recommend as being kind of the footsteps towards pre-launching, and then after you've launched that new line, that they should be be mindful of?
So I would say that I would want to do if I was doing it again is basically identify what your target market is. For us, we kind of already had that set. The niche of the 65 plus was already set. Now we're growing with younger families, don't get me wrong, but that was already set. We like doing business with those folks. They like doing business with us. So now it was, how can we do more business with that captive audience? You've already earned their trust in business. How can you do more? So for an agency that is totally different than ours, that does business with 18 to 40-year-olds, maybe it's life insurance, looking at things that most of those people should be hearing more conversations about. I know there's lots of talk about it, but like that could be a way to deepen. I would never suggest a 65-year-old buy life insurance. It just doesn't make sense. It's just identifying I guess I would say if you like the people you're currently doing business with, what are your options to do more business with those people?
So I'm not going to challenge you on the life insurance thing, but I do have a question for you. So if you were I would imagine that there's probably gonna be people who watch this and they get so gung ho and they're like, I'm gonna do this tomorrow. I'm gonna do something tomorrow. Obviously, it worked out more favorable in your guys' situation because you guys already had a very established book of business, right? There was grace for you to take up until probably this point of 6 years of learning to understand what you're doing, right? Probably not 6 years, but a year or 2.
Definitely a year for sure.
Yeah, there was still money coming in the agency. You could put food on the table.
Yep.
So what would be the jumping point for somebody else to say, you know what, whether it's, we have lots of people who want to add mortgages to their insurance business. We have people who want to add, you name it, travel or just all kinds of things, right?
We write
Financial
travel
planning.
insurance too, by the way. Hit me up.
Oh, shout out. Shout out.
Where's Dave Jackson? Get Dave on the phone.
So, but like, what do you think would be the good, appropriate launching point? I mean, when you have, do you think there's measurables or variables that if someone's saying, I want to add a second line of business, you would say, whoa, 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 buddy, let's make sure you have this in play first. And let's be cognizant that there may not be any money coming in for the first 6 months on this. So know what you're going to do for income in the meantime. What would you suggest as a good starting point?
Yeah, exactly what you said. Once you're financially comfortable, I think that you have to hustle and put your head down and do something good. Insurance, all of us love the living that we make because of renewable income. That allows us freedom, flexibility, that you don't have to be at your desk 9 to 5 for your paycheck to still come in. So it's not something that I would say you just do on a whim. It's once you feel like you're successful, but you want to be ultra successful. You want to dominate. You want to do something that just, is game changing for your competition. Identify who that is and how can you be better than them at what they're doing. So it's comfort, because at some point in time, I had a good career in banking. In order to leave it, I didn't come over for commission only on my first auto policy written for $800.
Right.
So there had to be enough room to pay someone like myself, who is pretty good at what they do, to leave, to do something, to start some from scratch. So I would say, as a principle, you have to be comfortable enough, maybe taking a step back from what you're doing.
Would you recommend for principals that instead of them trying to start somebody brand new, to maybe look to somebody who's already experienced in a particular line of business that they're doing? Would it have been better for your dad to go and hire his really good friend or an agent from around the corner? Let's just take you out of it, right? But go hire somebody who knew exactly what they were doing, been in the industry, the insurance industry for years and years, knew how to write personalized insurance. Would it have been better for them to do that, or was it ultimately the best thing? Try to be unbiased here. Was it the best thing to put you in that position?
I think it was the best thing for our situation, because no one cares about the business like the owners. So the fact that my name is on the front of the building and that when I go out, I am part of the brand, no one's ever going to care as much as I do. It's just not going to happen. You cannot get employees to care as much. You can get them to be awesome, to be good, stewards of your business and go out there, but they're never going to have that little bit extra. But that said, if you can find someone that has the vision of ownership, whether it's a part ownership in that business or the bigger key, I think that you absolutely could go and get someone else. I think part of the problem that you and I had talked about previously, Nick, was you're also getting some of their baggage with some of that experience.
Sure.
So it would have to be someone that I could see as very malleable to our culture, how we do business. It might not be how they do it. Now they can teach and I can teach them, and we can, find the best of each other. But sometimes people who are really good at what they do know that, and they aren't necessarily willing to turn around and start taking orders from someone else.
Yeah.
If they're thinking, hey, let me go branch off and do my own thing, maybe they'd be better at that. So I think that the opportunity is totally there to get someone who's experienced, who would not have had that learning curve that I had, without a doubt.
Because I mean, not everybody has a son that they could bring in, or somebody they could bring in. This is what happens when you do it live. Oh, buddy, go out.
You have a son that you could bring in?
You want? He's butt naked, so no. This is a family show. So not everybody has, their son that they could bring into the business. So that trust factor isn't there. The other thing I was going to ask you is, does this make you want to add another line of business, knowing what knowing the challenges that you were able to conquer with this? You're like, okay, I think we can maybe add this kind of division to our agency, and because we did it this way, here's the lessons that we learned, and here's how we would do it moving forward on something brand new, completely green to our agency. It's
funny you should say that, because 2019 we're launching our commercial division. So yeah. I mean, quite frankly, once you get a taste for blood, for lack of a better term, once you're getting more of people's business, it's good. Deepening the relationship, getting more and more and more part of their household is a good thing. So there are people that run businesses in every small town, wherever you are, big towns, small towns, whatever. And so to us, again, just like personal lines was really hard to get appointments initially, commercial has turned out to be that way, even though I've built this, what I would call pretty successful little personal lines agency. It hasn't had any clout for a commercial carrier to say, great, I'll give you an appointment.
Are you going to be heading that up, or are you going to hire out for that? Or is that
I'm heading that up.
Wow. Good for you, man.
So other than you heading it up, are you running a different blueprint this time than you ran last?
Yeah, more target marketing. When I started, I didn't have the guts to say no. Anyone that walked in the door, SR22s, there's a market for that. Don't get me wrong. You can kill it with that, but it's time consuming. There's lots of payment follow-up and different things. And it didn't fit our current niche. And I just wasn't bright enough and aware enough to say, yeah, that ain't for me. Go to the guy up the street. Whereas now that I've learned that and built a business that has the base, I've learned that it's better to be really good at a few different things and kind of build your knowledge base on that than it is to try to say, I'm going to conquer manufacturing and contracting and tech and coffee shops, Main Street landlords, all of that. I've basically picked 2 or 3 markets that we've identified that have a prevalent opportunity, lots of them that are similar kind of age demographic to myself, that we can go in with a more targeted approach as opposed to just hanging the shingle and saying, we're open for business. There's going to be a little bit more of a, hey, we don't do that. Sorry. We just don't do it. Whereas when I first started, my need to write policies, we still quoted a lot of stuff that in hindsight, we wouldn't do.
So the niche is obviously the one thing focus. Is there anything from a staffing or a, implementation program that you look at this now and say, gosh, when we learned from our first time doing this, we're going to implement something different here?
Not really. I mean, ultimately, again, I'm going to preach the fact that I kind of want to know a lot about everything that we do in our office. And so I'm going to kind of become the first expert in it and then disperse that knowledge and grow that book with more producer power. But initially, I want to know it because I guess I'm maybe a little bit of a control freak, but I want to know what people are going through. I want to be able to help them when they have challenges. So I could have gone the route, like Nick said, of finding a commercial producer in town or out of town to come in and do it. But then I wouldn't really have any ability to manage them other than like, so how's it going? What have you been up to? How many leads have you contacted? I wouldn't have like strategies and firsthand experience, which I think ultimately gets you a lot of buy-in when it comes to your clients as well as your team and myself, that I've been there, I've done that.
What would you say is the biggest regret looking over the last 6 years, starting the process fresh? What would you say is your biggest regret, that if you could go back and redo something over again, that you would do? Besides Collabcast.
Put me on the spot with that one. I'm sure my dad, if he was here, he'd probably say do it sooner. But I think it's being willing to take the risk, whether it's hiring someone. A lot of times I think we get complacent in business because things are going well and we have money and we're comfortable and there's not a lot of threat there. And so I think people are hesitant to maybe push their agency, whatever it is, themselves, whatever you're doing, to push to the next level. And I think sometimes, you got to take 2 steps back in order to actually go that much further.
Sometimes
and so
5 steps back.
I think a lot of people, and understandably, it's human nature. We like what's easy and known. But I think a lot of people say, well, great. My take home this year, since we've grown, my take home was 150,000, whatever their agency owner, principal, whatever. And I don't want to give up 50,000 to hire someone that's going to be awesome with a great salary. Like, I'm not willing to take back without the foresight that this person could come in and make your 150, 250 or 300 or whatever. I mean, whatever number you want, depending how you want to grow it. So I think, just some of the hesitancy since we conquered this expansion, it's made us much more apt to say, what's next? Is it another physical location? Is it more lines of business? Do we need to, do an addition to the building and bring in more people? Once we got the taste for blood of success of kind of taking the risk, I think that's what I would say, is that you got to be able to sacrifice some of the now for the what ifs of the future.
Are you preparing for a step back with the launch of the commercial lines? Like, is that part of your planning? Is, look, we're going to take a hit. It's going to take me away from some of the personal quoting. It's going to take me away from that.
No. Since innovation, here's a plug for you guys. Since innovation, I kind of
plug innovation. Yeah.
Innovation. Phoenix 18 was my first year going, and it really kind of changed my mindset about, you get so much. I still have my little workbook right here that I still constantly reference.
Yeah, baby.
You got a long laundry list of stuff. And basically, one of the biggest takeaways was working on your business, not in it. And so for the longest time, I had 2 producers that were with me side by side doing stuff. But I came back, I'm like, dude, why am I seeing 70% of the people? Like, you guys should be doing that. I've already got a book of business that I wrote that I have to service. And so just simply doing that and empowering them to kind of do stuff. And we put in a new incentive program. I have an awesome team of 2 producers that are taking that off of my plate. Like, quite frankly, there's been months where I've only quoted maybe 20 households, 15 households or something, which is low for us, because they were doing it. And it allowed me to do different things. Like, we're working on other stuff and getting commercial appointment. And so, no, I don't think it's going to be a step back. I think it's going to be a lot more work for me in the interim, because the easy thing to do is to stay with what I'm good at, what I know, my carriers I'm comfortable with, and just, bang out more personal accounts. But to me, diversification is kind of the key goal when you look at the forecast for the industry. You want to have more lines out there to possibly bring in income.
So tell me what you're targeting on commercial and why you chose that.
We are going to be targeting, first off, just small mom and pop retail, because in a small semi-tourist town, there's a lot of that. And we have great relationships with those people through Chamber. We're going to be, targeting coffee shops, small restaurants, and professionals. We do a lot of business with realtors, mortgages, tax advisors. And so when you kind of look at those few different things, it gives us a little bit of a wide net to cast, but we're not going after, contractors, bless their heart. I have friends that are them. That's a lot of work and a lot of knowledge and time consumption and certificates. I have learned from the mistakes of my forefathers. I have other agents that I talk to that say, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Just like now I'm telling other people, if I were getting started, I wouldn't take a lot of time on the SR22s, on the people that are calling you and flat out don't want to take the time to give you the information. That's an indicator that that's going to be a lot of work for very little value. So that's kind of the plan. We'll see how it goes. Maybe next year I can do a collabcast about all the failures of launching a commercial. But to us, it was just an opportunity of how can we do more with our assets that we have, which I think more is the goal. More money, more clients, more impact on our community, more donations, just more, right?
We're gonna do a panel, or we're gonna do some sort of collaboration next year at the next innovation, where we get everybody together and we talk about nothing but our failures. Everybody wants to talk about all the good things that we do and all the successes and all the wins, but nobody wants to talk about the failures. And if it's like anything like me, I for every win I have, every quote unquote win I have, there's 1,000 other failures that followed that.
You ever met a gambler that tells you about all the bad stuff?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh man, this one time with this one bet, I killed it. And it's like, yeah, but you're at the casino 4 days a week. I mean, one win a month is probably not good. There's a reason that you're there.
Yeah. Adam with the awkward silence.
No, so one of the questions I really wanted I almost wanted to push back on you a little bit. Like, I'm excited for you, and it's awesome that you think like that you're saying I'm not expecting a step back, but I'm interested to see what I also want to, let me take a step back from that real quick. Did you actually, when you looked at your father's book and you were looking to grow out and you were looking to build out this commercial lines, did you actually did you forecast based on your revenue that you were anticipating through renewals or in new business growth? Like, okay, here's how we can support that new growth. Or was this like, look, we see blood in the water and we're just going for it because we trust ourselves and we're having faith in the business?
That one.
The latter.
That one. There's two types of people, and I think both can be extremely successful. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do business personally. And I think that there's people that have an incredible amount of strategy, data, statistics, analytics, whatever you want to use as the buzzword. And then there's people that kind of work on the behaviors. And I think it's a really rare talent to find someone that does both extremely well. We're more of a behavior agency. I don't track meticulously what my producers are doing. I just want to see how they're doing it and assume that what we kind of have bred will bring the business in the door, and thus far has worked. Commercial may be a whole different beast. I mean, we're willing to fail. Again, we're at a point where financially we can do it. I would never suggest people to go crazy when you're getting spread too thin, and it means how are you making the car payment, or how are you making your payroll or B&O tax or whatever. That's not the time to kind of do these things. It's once you feel like life is easy and comfortable, that's probably the time to start making it uncomfortable, because comfort just comes fat and happy. And I've definitely gotten a little bit fatter this last year, so I need to start working harder, I think.
Well, it's funny you say it. Maybe that's the takeaway, right? Like, it's that you're willing to take that and willing to fail in that, right? And that, to a lot of us, and that, you know, this is to anyone, is that idea of failure is so, you know, crushing or crippling at some point, or paralyzing. You got to be willing to take that jump to fail. And obviously everyone asks for the best, but actually accepting that, like, look, this could fail, but I think it's the right move, is really a smart play.
Yeah, and something for me, I mean, one of the main drivers when you talk about why, you know, we've grown, we've close to doubled in size in the last, I think, 3 years. To me, it's about the longevity and future of the insurance industry, and having more lines gives you more stability, because we have seen something be snatched from us in the last 5 years. The individual healthcare market, we jumped into the Obamacare stuff. We crushed it. We helped, I think the first 3 years, we got up to about 1,200 households that we helped enroll. And then guess what happened? They took commissions away entirely. So some of the commercial side for me, as a little bit of the doomsday prepper, is, hey man, I want to have as many things out there, so that way when one line changes or they go to 10 commission or something happens, that you have more things to prop up your business. Because when you have all your eggs in one basket, if the industry changes or goes haywire, you know, in our term, we lost 25% of our revenue in, you know, a single year. A fell swoop, like just cut out from underneath us. And, you know, that'll generally, people that have hardships, that teaches them to be, you know, tough and fight through it, and to be a little bit more maybe risk taking, because they don't want to end up complacent again with certain things.
I think there's an interesting dichotomy to that, because it's like your acceptance of failure is actually ensuring your success, right? Or securing your survival, right? Because your willingness to grow out and to be then more dynamic and have more lines of insurance is actually going to shore up the business. And I know we got a question, so I want to let Nick get in on it, but
yeah, so Gaston Roberti, forgive me if I butcher that name, Gaston. I don't know if it's Gaston or Gaston.
Gaston, right? I mean,
perhaps. He wants to know, James, if you, and I'm going to quote him verbatim, if you go after coffee shops, will you focus on just the BOP or also the workers' comp?
Yeah, BOP, because Washington State doesn't have workers' comp, so it's a state-run program. So,
there you go.
Again, in efforts of my previous mistakes of trying to conquer everything that is moving, we've tried to pick out what are a little bit more simple accounts with less service, you know, on an ongoing basis, because I know, yes, I am going to be spread thin. So what I don't want to do is start doing everything and jump for everything that moves, especially when it's going to then be lots of certificates and service work after the fact. Now, in 2 years, 3 years time, maybe that my perspective will change. But initially, because I'm still going to be managing the agency, still going to be working in personal lines, I need to have a simple focus. And so to answer the question, no workers' comp, because we don't have to do it here.
So I guess so as you're growing this out, and I know you said that basically it's a demographic decision on what you're going to grow into, right? So on the small markets and the small, you said Main Street stores and the like, do you feel that that planning and that forecasting was steered by, like, for instance, in Washington, you could write statewide, right? So you're licensed statewide. Do you have, was any of that driven based on a premium valuation, or were you basically like, look, this is my neighborhood, this is what I'll know, I think I can write this?
Yeah,
Again, get to that evaluation decision.
Hyper local. Again, that is everything we've been built off of. And in a growing community, there's lots of opportunity for that. It's not like, small town here is shrinking, we're growing. And what I've found is that when you have the social equity with people, that they'll kind of let you learn with them. I mean, they're going to know. I'm not going to hide it. I'm new to this. I may have to come back to you with more questions. Then once you're an expert, like initially, I still visit with my clients face to face 80% of the time. And there's something about relationship building that is to be said about that. Some people will laugh and say, what a waste of time, but I would beg to differ. But ultimately, that has given me the confidence that now, if I wanted to run a marketing campaign 300 miles away, I would have no problem with my confidence level, with my knowledge, with video proposals. I could do it totally. That would be a manpower situation where we'd have to look at higher staffing. But to me, I want to learn the business on the people that I have the equity with, that I can still see face to face, that I can walk in, that I can be a patron of their business. Like, people want to do business with them, right? I mean, most people in our town, I don't think, have an insurance agent that goes and gets coffee there once a week or takes their kids to a Mexican restaurant or whatever. I mean, that's a different thing.
No, I think that's another great takeaway too, right? Like, you're targeting a market not only based on its locale, but also based on your ability to work your sales process, right? So your ability to sit down at a table and work that process with them. And I think that's built out from the Medicare, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, right? That same type of coffee table relationship.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's still a relationship business. As much as we can have new fancy toys and technology and stuff, it's still about trust. Like, people aren't going to give you their credit card to pay the bill, or they're not going to give you their social security over the phone and stuff until that you have some of that trust. And so that is how I plan, at least initially, to build the commercial line, is because of the trust that we have with people in our community. Now, could I write coffee shops or CrossFit gyms or whatever across the state? Sure. I mean, that's definitely the future, but I don't want to look like a buffoon to a lead 200 miles away because I'm still learning how to do it. I don't want to call them up 5 times like, hey, by the way, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
One final question for you, James, for me personally, that I think would help me out. Speak to the person, the agency owner, who is saying, yeah, this all sounds great, but I'd rather just double down on something that I'm already doing really, really well. Because it could have been one thing for your dad to just be like, you know what, we're actually just going to double down on this. Like, and obviously it worked out, but I'm just saying, like, it's easy for us to say, and you talked about doing what's safe and known, to just say, I'm going to double down on this line of business, and I'm going to make this even more, like, I'm going to maximize this completely instead of like, divide and conquer and spread out. What would you say to the agency owner who kind of has that kind of, I don't want to call it opinion, but just give that kind of overall thought process?
Initially, I would say, man, it's your business. You can do what you want.
Sure.
I mean,
of course.
Ultimately, but I mean, again, the story that I would tell is diversification. It just insulates you from market factors. So we had no control, no power, anything over when the Affordable Care Act cut commissions, 25% right off the top. I mean, talk about a lot of businesses wouldn't be able to sustain that, or at least not, they wouldn't have a good attitude about it. But that risk is there. As much as we all love it, I don't care what anyone says about everything has changed over the last 20 years when you look at technology. So the risk of carriers wanting to write direct, or self-driving cars cutting commissions so far, in 20 years, that it's just not going to be the same. And so the more things that you're doing, it gets you in front of more people, and it gives you more chances to be insulated from market factors. Because I can tell you, I've seen conversations, hey, what if all commissions went to 10-10? That's hardly worth it anymore. Well, yeah, unless you have 4 other lines of business with them, then you've got a customer for life that you're making more than just the one policy 10% commission. You've got a lot, and then they're hopefully being, you know, a little advocate for you out in the community, sending people your way. So that's what I'd say. I mean, it's about insulation from market factors that gives you some peace of mind that you've got more than one, you know, iron in the fire, that if something happens to one of them, you're not. That's our whole impetus for commercial, is if personal lines become so automated and things go the way of this trending market, is what all the forecasts have said over the last few years, it gives you more diversification.
Well, I think too, it's borne out by what your father built, right? Like he built just Mets up, but he also had the life and annuity. He's got the long-term care policies. He had kind of different lines within that same space that were correlated, but also created lifelong customers, right? Yeah. And maybe in the sunset of their life, but they're in their life for the remaining period of their life. They never left.
Yeah, people are living a lot longer these days. I mean, you look at the average age. That's still a lot of good years to have loyal clients that generally, for us, require very little service and hand-holding and pay bills in full, and, you know, appreciate your advice and counsel.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know, we're hitting that hour mark, and I don't want to take any more time. I know you got to go and get all your Oregon Duck fan. I'm giving him a hard time, guys, because he is a Washington Huskies guy, and it's burning him right now that the Ducks flew this weekend. Hey,
we do have other teams here, though. We do have other teams in the Pacific Northwest, you know, some who have a recent Lombardi trophy that they have hoisted. So it's not all about the Huskies. In my household, we split our allegiance.
Yeah, Adam, how are the Bears doing?
You know what? We're relevant. That's all I care about. We're relevant. They're showing up. I can wear a Bears hat and not be embarrassed anymore. And I still get a Jay Cutler fix on my wife's love affair with the Cavalieri show, right? So there we go. But hey, we've hit our hour, guys. James, I really appreciate you. James, I really appreciate you taking the time with us. I think a lot of what you said, I think hopefully emboldens. And there we go. Nice specs. Emboldens and really makes some agencies grow to new heights, right? So thanks so much for your time, Nick. As always, I hated every minute of being around you.
You know what? You sound just like my wife.
Well, hey, it's at least you got consistency, right?
All right, keep it down, you two. All right.
You guys, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll be on next month, right? We got next month. We're going to be on with Corey Schneibel, I think. So we're going to be talking about personal lines growth and management. So we'll be seeing you guys then. Thanks again, James. Have a wonderful rest of your Halloween.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Talk to you later. Well, James bounced.
He was quick.
He didn't want any more of that.
He's like, I'm out.
Done with you.
Bunch of losers.
Bunch of tools.
I think I have to make sure we are not recording anymore.